Hey everyone, another bit of an impromptu Devs in the Sheds. We're getting ready for the Pygame event at the start of Sunday, I think our time. I think it's about 9 a.m. they released the topic. We were thinking that it was going to be Friday or Saturday, but there was a bit of a mix-up in the dates in the Pygame forum. They fixed it all up now, and so we know that Sunday will be going live. So Paul, Aaron, and myself have been discussing, essentially what topic do we want to choose? Like what kind of game would we want to make? We don't know what the subject is. It could change everything, but like we might be interested in doing a point and click. We might want to do like a scroller, like Major Strike or a Raptor. We might want to do like a Crystal Caves or Mario type game as well. So we don't know what that is yet. We don't know what the subject is, but we're just studying up on Pygame. I hadn't used it for about a year and a half since now. So I kind of like stay in the back of the community. I use a whole bunch of different game engines for fun. But Pygame 2 came out. I got excited about it, and I'm really keen to dive into Pygame 2 and do this event. So what I might do first, though, you might have noticed that we have a special guest star with us today. So Alex is in the corner down the bottom. He has been learning Python, I believe, and he's been learning Pygame and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he wanted to show us something today as well. Alex, what have you got for us? And did you want to say hi?
Hi.
Hey, so what's the book called?
Computer Coding Python Games for Kids.
Nice. And have you worked far through it yet? Like how far have you gotten into the book?
Maybe a quarter way.
Quarter way. And is it heavy reading? Is it fun or is it very hard? Like
fun.
Fun. No, that's good to hear. I know from Paul, he mentioned that you were really excited to get to the graphics side where you can see stuff on the screen, right? Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. Well, you can watch us on the weekend. We might be looking for a fourth person, so if you do feel like joining in, feel free to join our group. More than happy to have you do bits and pieces, as long as you've got no homework to do or anything else like that. But yeah, that's really exciting and great to see that you're looking into programming and doing Pygame as well. It's awesome. Excellent. Alex, feel free to stay in the background if you want to as well. You can jump in and ask questions as well. You're the only one with privileges to ask the stuff over voice, so very lucky. If anyone's got any comments as we go through, chuck them into the channel, put them into the chat where we're watching the YouTube and the Twitch stream as well. And maybe what we'll do is we'll get into my side. We do want to kind of keep it short because we know it's Friday night for most people, and I guess we've probably got a ton to kind of fit in. We always say short, like 20 minutes, and it ends up being an hour. So I'm also aware of that. So what I'll do is I'll add my screen into Twitch. Has that appeared for everyone?
Yeah, I can see it, Matt.
Yeah, I can see
Perfect.
that.
So yeah, I have the Pygame documentation open in the background, but I was watching the Pygame community summer team jam, so you can see the countdown says that we've got 1 day, 13 hours until it opens up, and we'll know the subject. We might discuss towards the very end, like a couple of like themes or ideas or things that we'd like to do, but we're not going to do hands-on and actually start until we know what the subject is, because it could change absolutely everything. But quite excited to see what the theme is. Now, I've been exploring the art side. So firstly, I made this graphic about a week ago, Paul. This was a mock-up of Paul. I can't use it for Pygame Jam, so I might have to redo us if we do a platformer game. But this is just an example of pixel art in Photoshop, right?
We were originally, Matt built this because we were building another game that we are still continuing to build using Phaser. So Matt just built this, and I built a little side scroller of my character, that one, hopping around all over the screen that we're continuing to work through.
Yeah, exactly. So just an intro to doing pixel art in Photoshop. So I have a very tiny res picture. So if I remember correctly, the image is like 32 by 32. Let's have a look. No, 64. So I've added some extra pixels in. So it's 64 pixels by 64 pixels. And you can see how small that looks on my screen. What I do is I zoom right in until it fits on the screen. And then I go in, and to do pixel art, I use this 1 pixel hard pencil brush. And so that allows me to kind of add shapes in, right? Which is pretty nice. And so I kind of look for good shapes. It's something I haven't done in a couple of years, actually. I haven't really done too much art. You kind of like make nice shapes fit each other, and then you kind of go, okay, I'm starting to see a character out of this. Sometimes you have reference on the side as well if you want to make it look very particular like someone as well. But that's kind of like the default way that I do things. So we're going to probably do a bit of streaming of the art when we go through Pygame Jam. So I'll make sure to show everyone what I'm doing. But I wanted to explore a couple of programs as well, like ASE Sprite. I have not really used at all, but I've been told that it's very good for pixel art. So it's very similar to Photoshop. Like I can zoom in, and then I might move that preview over a little bit. And then I've got my hard brush, and again, I can look for shapes, right? So if I wanted to make a character,
Matt, can you just remind what was the name of this program so I can like Google it up?
This is ASE Sprite, or ASE Prite. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but it's fairly cool. A Sprite, maybe. Let us know in the chat if anyone knows how to pronounce it correctly. I'm the worst when it comes to pronunciation. You'll hear me mispronounce things all the time. And I think at work today, actually.
Did you say pronunciation?
Pronunciation. I think today at work as well. I think I said code as infrastructure again.
Okay.
Which is just being dyslexic. But anyways, so like you kind of look for a shape, right? So if you're wanting a character, like the arms look a little bit weird there, so I might rework the shape. But you're kind of looking to form like the base of a character that you can work towards. So you have like your head, and it's like that's too wide, so I'd kind of brush it down. And you kind of, until you kind of get to an area where you're kind of like happy with the character. Like at the moment, the dimensions of what I'm doing here, I'm not so happy with. So, I would look to move this down maybe, and maybe I want to make the head a bit bigger. So I'd kind of select things, move them down, delete that, and then I might go on with the pixel art brush again and kind of get like that shape right, like before, and then I'll put the detail in, right? The interesting thing about pixel art is you have to express with very little space, and so things won't naturally be in the right proportions or anything like that, but it kind of stylistically looks like a person. People can like emphasize this looks like a face. I don't have eyebrows, I don't have a mouth, but it's good enough, and then I can use maybe a couple of pixels that drop down if this person speaks. But yeah, that's kind of a sprite. So yeah, I'll have a look at that as well. The last one that I might do, just because I love working from it, but I'll just go over to QuickTime. And there was an app on the iPad that I found quite fascinating. So I've got the pencil, as you can see.
Just a quick one, Matt, before you go into that. Were you just using the mouse to draw that, or do you have a pen on your computer?
I'm using the mouse, but in the shed, I've actually got like a, I'll show you guys actually. I'll bring it up in a browser. I'm just using the pen right now, or the mouse right now, but I've got a Wacom Cintiq 16 Pro, I think it is. So this looks like it here. Yeah, and so what I do is I connect this into HDMI into my Mac Mini, and then I can draw directly on the screen as well and have it as like a flat surface screen next to my keyboard. So I'll probably be doing that for the competition because it's about 5 times faster to work off having a pencil in hand. But I'm pretty good with the mouse, as you can see. Like I can do something with the mouse at least. But the other option is to actually use the iPad with the pencil, right? So I could create a canvas if I wanted to, transparent backgrounds. I can go in here and very similar again, right? Like I can sketch out a character. So, like just a really bad stick person. if I wanted to, but I can put all the detail in with the pencil. I can sketch. Each of these applications, what I'm really impressed with them is that they've got layer support. So AC Sprite has this, Photoshop of course has this, Pixelarchy has it as well, Pixarchy. But I can kind of do a rough sketch and then detail it out on the second layer. Then I can put the colors in another layer. Then I can do the shadows in another layer. So I've got 4 layers to play with, which is pretty nice. So I like that. And all 3 of them also support like some basic animation, right? So I could, is this the selection? Let's have a look. I think it is. So if I copied that, could paste it here.
I'm just looking for my pencil really so I can try along with you.
Yeah, really terrible, really terrible animation there. But you can actually see an onion skin, which gives you like a transparent view of the layer that you've got before and the layer that you've got ahead. And so that allows you to do things such as like have someone do a jump animation or something. So that's pretty cool as well. So yeah, I'm exploring all the art programs, working out what we're going to use on the art side. I do know that these competitions, like half of it's in the programming, half of it's in the art, and the art's got to look good to win. Now, the part that does scare me is, you know, music. People are going to kill me for saying it, but you've also got like a large element where you've got like 10% of what you make. Like people are going to be tied to the music and how you bring it in. So I don't know if I'm going to lean on my wife, who's very musical. I'm just not musical at all. Or I might try and dare myself to look at Fruity Loops Studio, so I could put in a couple of kicks, right, and I could play some really terrible music there. So if I can convince my wife to help us, we'll be winning. Or if anyone else on the team's got skills in making beats, we'll be doing a lot better than if it was just me. But I know that we've got to put some kind of music in and also think about sound effects as well. So that's probably our weak area maybe as a group, I'd be thinking. So the next thing that I did want to show is, you know, if like you can just have large, long textures being brought into the game. We saw through Aaron's game, and I might get Aaron to show it later if he's feeling like it's ready to show what he's been doing in his little in the little tutorial. But you also have like tile maps, right, for video games. So let's go tile map Zelda video. We'll just have a look at a couple of the pictures here. But tile maps are kind of like a flat surface where you can kind of put you know, squares down of textures, and you can have multiple layers as well. So you could have like a grass texture, like in the background here. Then you have like a solid grass texture on top on another layer, and then you might have cliffs. Then you might have objects in another layer. You might have the main character in another layer. And then in the game, you can actually talk to that tile map to work out where everything should be positionally. So you don't actually have to do that from code and guesstimate. You can actually use the tile map program to define all these things, and then pick up the labels that you used in the tile map application and load those into Pygame. So that might, depending on the theme, that might be something that we look at. But I've got a really, really, really terrible base play around with this, and I have not touched this app before. So I've only played with it for maybe half an hour. So this is a tile map that I was looking at beforehand. If I can work out how to move over to the actual tiles. Let's see, and how do I zoom in with this app? On my other computer, it was already zoomed in. So let's have a look.
I found my Apple Pencil, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yep. So that means I can give that a bit of a go. I did use it quite a lot for whiteboarding.
Yeah.
But I've never tried to draw any sort of pixel art. I'm not the creative type, so this is going to be like very difficult for me. But we'll give it a go.
So you don't want to do the jump animations and the walk animations. That's probably the worst of the bunch. Yeah. I'm going to be using references, I reckon, to get those right because it's been so long. Yeah. So, yep.
we could just do a sprite swap. You know, if you do like a couple of different states of the sprite, and then as you're moving along, leg forward, leg side, leg forward, leg side, just do sprite swapping.
Yeah, could do that. We could keep the animation super simple.
Yeah.
They'll depend on the art style and like how much detail that we want and how much time we've got to spend on the art, I guess. But this is the tile map program, right? So if I wanted to paint tiles, I could just choose them in the tile set. So you can just import it's basically just a PNG image, right? And then you know, each of these tiles is 16 pixels each. And so the engine kind of blocks it out as squares itself. So I can kind of go around and I can add, you know, the geometry in. I could add some detail. I've got a ton of different pieces of art that I could choose from here. But this will kind of like give the environment a bit of a shape, which is nice. Looks like the bottom's a little misaligned here. That's okay. Let's go like this and close it off with this. Oh, we don't actually have a bendy shape, but yeah, you can kind of make you know, detailed platformer blocks, and that's all in my first layer. I could have a layer behind that I can just create with the layer button here, so I can add a new layer, and I could have the sky in the background, or I could just leave it as blank and transparent, and then I could have like a parallaxing moving sky, for example, too. And then if I want to put a character down, I'll have an object layer created. So I just create another layer, you know, tile, object, image, or whatever. And in this object layer, I would basically look to drop an object. Let me remember what the button was. So I've got one object here, but I could add like another object somewhere else. And then you can give that object like a name. So this could be like potion. I could find a potion texture for it, and I could
Matt,
like
are you
map
able to
that in
zoom
here.
that screen? Are you able to zoom that
Yeah,
screen?
I can zoom in a little bit
hard
more.
To see. Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
It's okay. So this is what we could use for a tile map. And if we do the platformer, and this is like a universal free app, right? So if we did the platformer in where do we go? There we go. If we did the platformer in Phaser, we could use this as well to kind of create like a really cool platforming level, right? And then in our programming, we can programmatically say, this is the grounds. This is kind of like a physical object that character can't move through. These are the walls of the scene. Can do all that stuff there, and then we can drop all the items in, and so they have spots that they kind of stick and they show up in. So this is something that I'll probably be learning a little more on Saturday if it's going to help us. So we'll see. But the last thing is...
Just, Matt, what before you go, because I've been posting the links in, what was that one called, so I can paste the link that one?
This is tiled. So it was a bit hard to find online. I remember it from way back in the day. If you look tiled editor up, it's basically mapeditor.org. So the name doesn't match the name of the product.
Okay, I found it. I'll paste it in.
Yep. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And you know, like what does bringing in a tile map look like in a game engine? I grabbed this really cool sample, and I might have to put this one in the chat as well. Let me see. Apologies for the mirror effect. I'll just paste that in there. So Paul, you can post that back to everyone. But if we look at this, yeah, so Christian D37 had this really cool YouTube tutorial that I was watching, and a bit of code that showed a tile map appearing in game. So I kind of took that and I was just like playing around with that a little bit. I was just having a quick nose at it. So none of this is my own work I want to call out. It's all Christian D's. Yeah, yep, Christian D37's. Come on, Zoom. Why is the Zoom not working? Command plus. Just go presentation mode. Is that better? Can you see that okay, Paul?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, yeah, I can see that. That's good.
No, that's okay. Yeah, so basically, there's this tiles library that we can port on the app. You can call sprite sheet as well to load the texture assets. The sprite sheet is effectively all the Mario textures that we saw in tiled beforehand, or it could be any other list map of tiles that you've got. So that's kind of what you're going to overlay on the tile map when you look at things in the game. So when you import your level, now the tiled map editor exports to its native format, which I think is TMX or something like that. So there seems to be newer libraries that I've got to play with for tiles that might be a lot easier than this, because I think this code base is like 2015. But you can import in the native format versus the CSV format, and I'll show you what the CSV looks like afterwards. But I think the formats are quite similar. You essentially have this large array with a bunch of different random numbers given to different textures from your sprite sheet that have been mapped in. So you might have, like, let's just go for an example. Like, you might have an array that looks like this, right? And this is all nothing, this one line of your textures. And then you go, well, I want the player here, and the player is going to take that one value. And then, the platform underneath the player. And this is not going to be accurate coding, so apologies. This is just for example's sake. But you might have like some ground texture underneath the player in these 4 squares. So it's kind of like the principle that tiled uses. It kind of like imports this giant array. And you map, you can actually read the labels. So like, okay, this one equals a player. You can read the texture spaces as well to work out this should be ground texture, this should be sky texture. So you can do all of that. And so basically in the script, the map for the tile map is the CSV. The textures is the sprite sheet. And so the map equals this. And then you basically render out the map. And it looks quite easy, but there's actually a bunch more to it. So I'm going to get out of presenter mode. I have to work out why the zoom's not working on my machine, but
can you just change the font or something, Matt?
Yeah, I can change the font. Let's go preferences, appearance. Let's change it like that, maybe. Don't think it actually changed the code in the background, did it?
It didn't look like it did.
Something changed. It moved, but it didn't really change.
I thought that's what I did the other day, but I was using Linux.
That's a little bit weird. Let me just retry zooming in again. No luck. Let's just search. Well, anyways, I'll be quick with this one anyway. But basically, the author's written this sprite sheet view to load in that PNG and then break the surface up of the PNG to those 16-bit spaces. So every 16 is a tile. So he's written this sprite sheet script here to do all of that. And then the one that's a bit more complicated is how he loads in the tiles and how he picks up labels from the tiles and how he lays them out as well. And then the exported tiles kind of look like this. So this is what I was talking about before, right? So everything's -1 except for where I've got my platform. And on the second layer over here, I think I've got my player using another character somewhere. It might be hard to see. Maybe it's down here. That 0 might represent my player as well. But you pick all that from the CSV that's exported. I do think that this is kind of like the old school way of doing it. So that's why I haven't dived too deep into this project. I did see, I think it was like PyTile. I think that was like a pip library that I was going to have a look at. So this seems to be like the newer version of doing that. It looks a lot easier to implement. So I might be playing with this tomorrow and having a bit of fun. Because the tile map could be very handy for the game that we're working on, of course. So that's pretty much it for my exploration. I might stop sharing my screen. I'll go back to everyone else. How do you go with your art, Paul?
How did I go with my art? The pencil's completely flat, so I haven't even put the program on at all. But when we were talking earlier about the 3 genres of games that we were thinking about, I thought that I would. I quickly uploaded each image, and so I'll post it into the chat. The 3 different types that we were thinking about, and we can talk through those. So can you see that coming up in the chat, Matt?
These game textures, right?
Yeah, so all I did was it's just game 1, 2, and 3 from the same URL. But maybe if you share your screen and bring those up and talk through like what the 3 genres that we talked about that could be fun, and why we thought about that, and what type of games it reminded us of. Yeah,
let me share a window. That way you guys don't get the tiling effect. And I might actually just grab them off of the YouTube stream. So it wouldn't let me copy pasta from the comments. Oh, look, we're live. It's awesome. And we're muted, so we're all good. So let's have a look at these textures that you shared. I'll just go 1, 2, and 3, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so we could be working on a platformer game. So this is Crystal Caves. This is one of the games that I played when I was really little, I think. Yeah, it looks like Crystal Caves. So you play this little miner character here, and you've got like these slugs and other creatures, and you've got to collect all the gems in the level, and then there's switches and things that are color-coded that you've got to work out where they are. So this is one of my favorite games. But yeah, we could do a platformer, you know, like very obviously not Maroondah Council.
We were thinking about like Mario, Jill of the Jungle. What were the other ones we were thinking about? Like Duke,
Jill of the Jungle, Duke 2D. Like we could do like 2D, a platformer side scroller like this. You know, another one's Commander Keen, which was one of my old favorites. So there's quite a few of those. So we could do a fun little platformer.
I like the adventure style platform ones. You know, like you mentioned earlier today, the point and click style. One of my, I remember the name of the game I was looking for. Did you ever play Hugo's House of Horrors?
Yep.
Hugo's House of Horrors.
That's the one where you actually, that was what I was saying. You walk around, you say, you know, the door is closed, open the door. And then
that was
the door
like
is
the
locked.
really early Sierra.
Yeah.
It's like a graphic mud.
I remember this. This came on a CD somewhere. And I was like, I played it for a little bit. Yeah, so we could do like a 2D platformer type game. What's the next one? Yeah, Major Striker. So this is one of my favorite games. So this was just a space shooter game. You'd make your way along the land. It would kind of scroll down, and you'd have different enemies appear that you'd blast. You've got bunkers and things that you shoot on the ground surface. My other all-time favorite variant of this type of game was Raptor. Not the car.
All of the Shadows.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah.
So we were discussing that the other day. We thought that a game like this might be fun to remake.
Did you see Commando? You remember the old Sega game Commando? It's kind of like Raptor, but you're actually walking on the ground.
You're actually on the ground.
You got to walk around obstacles and stuff. And that was actually a multiplayer game as well. You could have 2 players join. So you couldn't actually go further than the screen unless the second player caught up with you, and then you could walk around. You used to shoot the enemy as they were coming down the screen.
Yeah, I remember this one fairly well. Yeah, isometric. Yeah, that could be quite fun too. The art would be a little bit harder for that one, but it would still be pretty cool, right? Just
kind of reminds me of Syndicate.
Dimension.
Did you guys ever play Syndicate?
Syndicate was cool. Yeah, I did.
Yep. The minigun and the flamethrower.
Yeah.
And the Persuadertron.
Yeah, it was kind of like the early version of Deus Ex, in a sense, which is my all-time favorite game.
Yeah, I love Deus Ex.
Yeah, Deus Ex, you just can't beat it. The screenshots are of the new one. Let me just see if we can see like a screenshot of the proper version of the game. Well, that's JC Denton. That's that's the original game. Maybe I'll just type original.
We got a comment from someone in the audience saying, "Make sure we hydrate." You know, I guess the people in Twitch
I've
love
been
to make sure.
good. I've been hydrating.
I had been as well. What about Tyrion? Like, what about that game Tyrion? I don't remember that game.
Let me have a look. Tyrion Lannister, the game.
Tyrion Lannister, the game.
That would be a fun game, though. It would be conversational. It would be an adventure game, if anything.
I don't think that would be definitely wouldn't be a PG game.
No, it wouldn't be. Here we go. Tyrion. I was like, yeah. So this is kind of like that top-down shooter game. I don't think I played this one. This doesn't look too familiar for me. We could always try for a resource management game as well. Like you've got the original SimCities, but you've got
what was that game that came out? Yeah, that was the one. It's like a programming game where you have to do refactoring
all the time, and then you make your mines, and the creatures try and attack it at night, and your base gets bigger and bigger, and you get different materials. It's always fun. Game free though, so this is more like. Actually, one more game on the platformer side was, I don't know if you guys ever played this, but God of Thunder. This was a really cool... Yeah, this is it. This was a really cool game as well. So you had all these tricks to get around the level, like you'd get special items that would help you get across like water, and you'd have lightning-powered axe that you can throw across the level that can get extra power-ups, and there were mountain trolls that you had to escape with perfect timing to get through. That was really, really fun too. But moving on to the other type that we did talk, like we've got like the old school point and click adventure games. So that's Police Quest.
Zoom that one in.
Yeah, I'll zoom that one in for everyone.
Those were the original EGA. I think that even at this point, were they actually point and click, or did you have to sort of drive around with the keys and type?
I thought you walked around on the screen.
I think at this you walked around with the keys and you typed open door. I think at that point they were still really early. It was about all those Sierra games at about number 5. So I think Police Quest 4 had nice graphics and was clicking with the mouse. But King's Quest 4 was you had to type everything, whereas King's Quest 5 was with the mouse, like a lot more control with the mouse.
I remember walking with the keyboard in the original like Space Quests like this, right? So these ones, and then they had like 4 and 5, and then that's when you could kind of click around the screen as well, and there's a lot more detail. I think this is 6.
So it's a very similar genre, but really similar genre, but would be like a very different game. They're very different the way we would build a game like that, because we'd have to have, if we did typing, we'd have to have fuzzy matching and picking up the types of text we're trying to type.
Yeah, the other thing is you'd almost have like a special layer on the background, like a texture, and that's the only thing that the players can move around. Or you'd have to draw out polygons to kind of say this is the movable space for these characters. And then that way you can click around and then they don't go into the walls and all of that. So you've got to have that extra level of detail. Yeah.
I worked on a little one, an older one. Obviously, it wasn't Python, but it was an older game where we actually, all we did was to set depth as you point up. Obviously, you just shrink down the character size. And then, as you said, you've got the polygons. So you put polygons and you can walk around polygons. And then it's basically, you know, like if there's a pillar, then you just put like a polygon in the area that they can walk. You don't have to do the whole pillar. Or if it's a car, then you can actually walk behind the car by just putting a small part of the car. But I used to love doing that because you get that depth of field, so you can sort of walk to the background, walk to the foreground.
Yeah, that's right. That's always cool. It's a little bit tricky to do, like, but the effect is really, really cool. And I always like these games because they had good stories, right? And a lot of them were really, really funny, actually. You had Loom as well. You had
there was Indiana Jones as well. Had a few.
Oh yeah, Indiana Jones
and the Fate of Atlantis or something.
Yeah,
that was it.
So while you've been talking about the different types of games, I've just been looking at animating characters like you were talking about before with Pygame.
Yeah.
All of the tutorials that I can see, it's basically, like I was saying, it's really just simple array iteration. So you get a whole lot of different sprites, load them all into an array, and then as your timer goes, you just cycle through the array and then back, and yeah, simple as that.
Matt, are you able to show us that code that you built before? Show us it running, and maybe we'll do some edits to that.
I did forget about that. Yeah, I'll share the full screen. So apologies on the mirror effect. I'll try and make it quick, the switch. But yeah, this I got up and running. I just put my own character in. There's no blocking or anything like that. So just got movement going. So he's not really sticking to any surfaces or anything like that. But the background's all imported from the tile manager, which is really, really nice, right? So cool. This was just using that example app. I haven't really done too much to it. But that's an example of getting it all working. Yeah.
For someone that's brand new to this, Matt, talk us through how that maps exactly to that little box there.
Yeah, so we can go into main.py. But
just try one more time to zoom in, because it's super hard to see.
Yeah, we've always got the worst case, way of doing it, and I'm sure Visual Studio Code will want to zoom in. So maybe PyCharm, goodbye for now. We can come back to you later. Yeah, look at that. Look, it just behaves. Yeah, so I'll just zoom straight in. Like I kind of went through it very, very quickly. That's really nice. Yep. Yeah. But you load in your tiles. So these are the tiles that correlate back to how you built things in Tiled. So you'd basically just do an export, and you'd save your level, and then you'd import that level as a CSV. And then the texture that you're using to assign to all the blocks in the level, you load in as your sprite sheet. So kind of like what I was saying beforehand. So it's fairly simple. All that I did was I overlaid Paul's little graphic on top. So you can see I hadn't really done much. I just drew him and then made some basic movement just to add him into the scene as I was mucking around and learning how this worked. But the next section is you've got to load the level itself. So, we've done all the texture work. We've taken the graphics, that sprite sheet. This one is just one example. So I've loaded that we're going to map it out to coordinates later, I think, in the example code here. But we load the map, the CSV. We put where we think the player is going to sit on the map as well. So I haven't really done that correctly just yet. And then what you do is on the canvas, you draw the map. So this is basically reading that CSV, and a lot of the magic's happening in that tiles script in the background. And so if you go to the tiles script, you can see that effectively what you're doing is you're importing that sprite sheet. You're passing it through as an image. And then what you're going to do is you're going to basically start to break the tiles up into 16 pixel bits. And this is for the sprite sheet. And then you're going to map these, I think, is what he's doing somewhere in here. Not yet, it looks like. But yeah, it looks like he's just got a whole bunch of stuff here that I'd have to look into more detail to see what he's actually doing. In the draw map, he's just doing a render and update. So it's all pretty obvious. So the load map,
in the CSV that say we want grass at all these places and we want the rock at these places. Is that effectively what it's saying?
Yeah, that's kind of how it works, right? So actually, if I go to my CSV that I exported from my map, so 318, that's an edge. So that was the left edge piece. So the left edge piece over here, this might make more sense to people, but the left edge piece there lines up to 318 in the CSV. So that texture is 318. 319 is this big long piece that we've got here. So it's texture, 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 texture. The character is sitting in 271. So that's the character's starting point. 320 is the very end because the tile goes right. And then I haven't exported that bottom piece that I did before. But I've got like this another section that I've made here as well. So you can see all that stick out here. So 318, 319, and it keeps going along. So basically, like what that tile script's going to do is it's going to try and load in those tiles. And then, you know, if this is 318, this is where he's doing it. This is what I was looking for before. But if the tile number is equal to 318, then render the grass. If it's 319, render the middle section of the grass. If it's 320, render the end. And so that's kind of the magic of how the tile loading system works. That was the piece that I was like hunting for beforehand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just coordinates within the sprite, yeah?
It's coordinates within the CSV and then coordinates in the sprite. That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's basically slicing the sprite above is what I'm sure he's doing. So
and is that because
slicing
there's a
into
defined
sections.
that sprite sheet is defined as a size, so it knows how to divide it up to get the map?
Yeah. So like if we were to open that sprite sheet in Photoshop, yeah, here we go. And if we were like to zoom in on that, like you can see the pixels again. And so what I do is you can have it 32 by 32 or whatever, right? But if I was to select this, or let's go for a really obvious one, right? Like that grass tile. So that grass tile is 16 by 16. So you saw it kind of come up as I was selecting in Photoshop. So the next one's the same. You know, if I was to drag this over here, these are roughly 16 by 16 each as well. And so what you're doing is you're basically like in that first part of his script, he's really slicing everything up into 16-bit pieces and then giving them like, you know, tile names essentially.
Yep. So the name of each tile of each individual piece, like a specific piece of grass, is the count all the way through to find the index of that piece, given that this sprite sheet was divided up into many 16 by 16 blocks.
Yeah, that's correct. And it's the same as what you do with animation. So like if we'll look at like animated pixel character sheet, I'm sure we'll find one online. Yeah, like let's see if we can blow this one up. We could just increase the size and cheat. But this will be the same, right? So they're evenly spaced in blocks that are square. And in those square blocks, like each one will be 32 or 16 or whatever, right? And so there's even spacing between each. So you can kind of cut out each animation, and then you can have frame 1 is that particular picture, frame 2 is the one beside that, frame 3, and you can keep going along until you get a walk animation or a standing animation or something like that. So you kind of break it up fairly similarly for animation, which is interesting, right? But it also explains like why, you know, when we look at a character that we've imported, like Paul. So if Paul was in the game, he could very well be. We'll have to see. I might just zoom out and then kind of go back in. So like the starting pixel's up here. So basically like this is kind of like the very start of the X and Y coordinates. And so that means that this entire picture is basically the image. And so even though in the game we only see this section, the middle section of the character, like the rest of that's getting rendered, but it's transparent. And so that means when you have like collision detection, like if a ball was to come up and hit Paul, or there was a gun and it fired and a bullet came out and hit Paul, you know, the bullet might end here, or the ball might cut off here, because it's kind of like it's hit the interaction point of this particular image. And so
when we're building animations or sprite sheets like this, do we usually keep the bounding box as tight as possible around the extremities of every frame in the animation?
Yeah, that's right. And the character's usually going to stick towards the middle as well. So if you get that defined, then you can make sure that the collision works a lot easier, because if you don't do it that way, you end up having to do a bit of manual maths to work out that is exactly in the middle. So we should fire the pixel, and then it should come through to about, like let's say 20 pixels in from your actual image before it disappears on the screen. So you kind of have to define things a bit more manually.
That's what we were doing last stream with the little space game.
Yeah, that's right.
The rectangle is around the sprite, but it's like slightly off, so you can see the bullet disappears just before it hits the sprite.
Mm.
So you'd have to like bring the rectangle in.
Did you have that up, Aaron? Were you able to show us?
Yeah.
Because we were discussing it and we talked about it, but I don't think we put that up in the stream.
Sure. Yeah. Share my screen.
Yeah. Let me do one thing very quickly. I'm just gonna do a default canvas, because the other thing is like, and I'll do this really, really rough, right? I'll create a new layer. I'll just get some brush, but like, like the level might be this room, right? And when we're doing the animation, like up here, like Paul might be fine. If we go like, he starts at 1 pixel by 1 pixel, and so you can't go past this line, and we can define that. But like if we go down here, 1 pixel to 1 pixel from the boundary, like if you're colliding, means that Paul would have popped off the screen because that starter pixel's up here. And so what you end up doing is you have to like minus the character off from the bottom, and then that way, So
we always got to be aware of the height and width of the character that we're moving around.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And if you wanted like Paul to fire a bullet, like per se, like you basically have to do the maths to divide Paul in half, get whatever that like pixel is on the x-axis or whatever it is. Is it X or Y? Yeah, it's y-axis, isn't it? And have that fire from the center. So that also means if we're going to have gun animations, we might do like a fancy animation coming from the character, like here, like the guns exploding or whatever. And then we've got to make sure that the bullet's going to come from this point. So we're going to have to do a little bit of fancy calculation on what that is if it's not exactly in the middle. What I'll do is I'll stop sharing now. I said we were going to do a quick one. It never ends up being a quick one. It's an hour again. So Paul, Aaron, you've just popped up on the screen now.
Oh, cool. So I'll show you the visual first, and then I'll actually step you through the code. So where are we? Yeah, here we go. So I'm just actually moving the rectangle around the screen, right? Let me just get them a bit closer, but you can see, I don't know if you can see it because let's actually move them out a bit further. So hey, collision detection, I'm pushing to the left and it's not going anywhere. I'm pushing all the way to the right, it's not going anywhere.
Yep.
There you go. So you can sort of see the bullet disappear just right before it hits it. That's just because the rectangle is slightly bigger than the actual sprite. So the sprite's sort of sitting in the middle.
It's also not exactly center the bullet as well, right? Like when you fire it off, it's actually above the gun.
Yeah, I probably need to move it around a bit.
But let's fix that. Let's find that and fix that now. That'll be interesting to go through.
First of all, I'll show you what we're looking at here. So in the main, at the top here, we've got red and yellow, right? That's the rectangle. So we've created the rect, and basically we've set it to be the width and the height of the sprite. So these two variables are actually my ship width and height. So that's my spaceship width, spaceship height. And then how I actually draw those is in the render, I'm feeding the rectangle into the draw window. And when I blip the ship sprite onto the screen, I'm using the X and Y coordinate of the rectangle. So that's actually being updated to the X and Y coordinate. So I'm actually moving the rect around and it's just drawing the sprite on top. So then if we were to, so X and Y, if we were to bring that in a bit, we could, let's say spaceship, which is on which side? That's yellow. All right. So let's say width, let's by like 5 pixels. Probably too much. 2 pixels.
Is red plus or minus though? One of them's the reverse of the other one, isn't it?
Yeah. The 5 pixels.
So did we fix the shooting bit where it comes from?
No, just the actual rectangle size. The sprite is still being rendered on the X and Y coordinate of the rectangle.
Yeah, but we adjusted where the bullet comes out of, right?
Oh no, that's not the bullet. So that's the rectangle, right? So the bullet, where are we? Let's find firing bullet. Is control. So the bullet, we're appending bullets, rect. So the bullet is from the X and Y. So the X of red, which is like the boundary, and then the Y plus the height divided by 2, subtract by 2. So you could probably even subtract by, actually, let's not subtract. Let's just divide by 2. Let's do the same for yellow. Let's see if that puts it a little bit more in the middle of the sprite. Is that a little bit more in the center?
So it's hard to say.
Let's add 2. Let's add 2. So plus 2 pixels. Plus 2 pixels. That looks a bit better.
Yeah, that looks like it's right in the center. Now, if you did the same sort of pixel adjustment on the x-axis, you could pull the bullet coming from the ship closer to where the gun. So the first animation
exactly
should shoot out earlier.
So it's exactly. There we go. So where are
nice
we?
Sunglasses, by the way, Alex.
Yellow.
Yeah.
That's
2, and this will be plus 2.
He's up exceptionally late today.
Yeah, other way around. I've made it even further out.
The red will be right.
Yeah,
the red is right,
so
but the yellow will be the other one.
Yellow.
But the red probably can still go maybe 2 more pixels again.
The other thing is, I feel like, you know, we've done like a couple of games where we've just got one file, right? Like going through the tutorials. We're going to have to think of a project structure as we build this as well. Like, you know, are we going to have like a Python script for enemies? Are we going to have one for the character, one for the environment, one for power-ups and special abilities? So I feel like this is going to get complicated very fast. It might help us work on separate pieces a bit more successfully.
Yeah. Should be the other way, I think. At least I fixed the. Whoop, we've got it running in the background. There's too many. Try that again. The red looks fine. It's coming right out of the nose.
Yep.
The yellow is still not quite.
The yellow should be negative, right? Isn't it? Isn't that on the X that we should be doing that, so, not the Y?
X and Y. So we are. That is the Y. So that's X plus, because the X is on the back and then it's plus the width. So we actually it should be minus.
Oh,
right.
So
it's,
yeah. So that's.
It's the X and then the sprite width, and then you want a minus to go in towards the sprite.
Yep. So that might be minus, try that.
There you go. That one, I think it's just the speed of the. That one looked like it came.
It still looks like it's coming out really far.
That one came out. That one came out far, but see, that one came out of here. There you go, coming from here.
Oh, okay. You could be right. It could be just the speed. Like, it's hard for your eye to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, no, that's very cool.
Simple math.
Yep.
So anyways, are we meeting up tomorrow night, or are we going to have a night off before we find out about the topic on Sunday? What do you guys want to do?
Well, seeing as how we're in lockdown, I'm going to be reading.
I think we could probably meet up tomorrow night.
Yeah, one thing I do want to play with, and I posted the link, is like it seemed like an overly complex way to render the tiles. So I want to play with PyTile as well, which seems to be more up to date. It was last modified like on the, I think, 26 days ago, the repo. But that seems to be a more modern way, and it doesn't use the CSVs. It actually uses the tiled editor map file. So it seems to take that native file, which comes across with labels, not just the numbers representing coordinates. So that might be one thing. Yeah. No. So excellent. I guess Alex, feel free to join us tomorrow night if you want to as well. Maybe you want to try and build something as well and show us. That would be cool too. You've got the book there to help out with that. But let's wrap it up for tonight, and we'll be back on sometime in the afternoon or evening tomorrow. We'll negotiate over WhatsApp, I reckon, between us, depending on what makes the most sense. But I hope everyone's enjoyed. We're fumbling around. We're definitely doing what we set out to on the Devs in the Shed show, learning something that we haven't really touched in a while or is fresh to some of us. So thanks everyone for watching, and yeah, we'll catch you tomorrow.
Take care, all.
See you, everyone.
See you
Thanks,
all.
everyone. Bye.